Hey everybody, welcome to Smart Couples Finish Rich, step number 4. Before we get started today, I just want to give a disclaimer. This is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor, just some guy on YouTube talking about a book. If you haven't checked out the previous steps, I'll put a link up there and down below. Make sure to check it out. Also, if you haven't gotten the book, make sure you buy it so you can follow along. All right, everybody, we are on to step number 4. We are almost halfway there. So there's 9 steps to Smart Couples Finishing Rich. Today, we're going to review step number 4. Step number 4 is the couple's latte factor. The basics of the latte factor is if you can find a way to save $1 a day on your cup of coffee and invest that $1 over a period of 40 years, the compounding interest can really increase your chances of finishing rich. So once again, if you're drinking Starbucks, drink Dunkin' Donuts. If you're drinking Dunkin' Donuts, drink 7-Eleven. If you're drinking 7-Eleven, make it at home. Now, if you're like me, you don't drink coffee, where we're going to find an extra $1 or $2 or $3 or $10 to invest. Here, the author has us go through the Smart Couples 7-Day Financial Challenge. What you do is that you write down everything you spend money on for 1 week. What you want to do is just spend like normal. Don't let this activity sway the way you typically spend. For the purposes of this video, me and Nita will actually look back on the past 3 weeks of spending. First, let's take a look at my portfolio. As you can see, this is from April 1st to April 29th. And yes, right now we're in 2020, which is in the middle of the COVID-19 lockdown and quarantine. As you can see, I still managed to spend $300 in extra expenditures. In my offense, I don't usually eat out a lot. The restaurants was actually to support local businesses, and charitable givings is typically not my normal monthly expense. I did, however, spend over $122 on online shopping because there wasn't anything else to do. I just had to online shop. As you can see, that's $300 in extra expenditures that I did not need. Because you know who needs charity? Me. I still have debt. I still didn't maximize my contributions. I definitely need to take a deeper dive into my expenses from now on. Alright, now let's take a look at Nita's expenses. If we take a look at her expenses, it seems like Nita spent a lot, but in actuality, she spent less than $300 in her necessities. I'm very proud of her because she didn't eat out one time this month. I was actually quite worried that she wasn't eating enough. She had $600 in loan payments, and she spent $200 in an auto scooper for her cat's litter box. Although that does seem extravagant, she is moving here to the West Coast, and she wants to relieve the pressure of her mom taking care of her 2 cats. What we're looking to do is not to restrict our spending, even though that's the goal of this activity, but to see where there's big areas that we can trim if we're not maximizing our contributions. Now let's take the latte factor that the author talks about and see how much my $300 in unnecessary spending will cost me in the long run. And let's say that I spend $300 a month extra every month unknowingly. If I took that same $300 a month for the next 10 years and let's say compounded 10% every single year, here's how much it would cost me in my 10-year retirement plan. I would lose $57,000 in investments. Yikes! This exercise was honestly eye-opening. I had no idea I spent $300 in a blink of an eye. If you're impatient like me, take a look at your last 7 days or even 3 weeks to see how much you spent in unnecessary expenditures. By saving money with the latte factor and also looking at your expenses to see where you can cut down, you can now start to take advantage of what we call compound interest. He says over time money compounds. Over a lot of time, money compounds dramatically. I did a quick Google search of compound interest to show you what he means in detail. Here's the definition of compound interest. Compound interest occurs when interest gets added to the principal amount invested or borrowed, and then the interest rate applies to the new larger principal. It's essentially interest on interest, which over time leads to exponential growth. The best example I can give you is if you leave $1,000 in your sock drawer. At the end of the year or the end of next year, what's going to happen to that money? It's going to stay $1,000. Let's say you put $1,000 into an index fund that yields you 10% a year. At the end of the year, you have $100 in interest because 10% of $1,000 is $100. Now that $100 in interest is something that you would never got if you left that money in the sock drawer. The following year, you have a new principal of $1,100. Again, the 10% interest rate will apply. Now you're getting 10% interest on your $1,100 versus if it was in a sock drawer, it would just stay at $1,000. Over time, that compounding interest will accelerate your earnings. Let's take a look at a chart that the author shows us here. Here we take investment amounts of $100, $150, and $200, and at different age groups. Let's just take 9% as the average return. Now let's see what happens if you invested $200 starting at the age of 25 for 40 years until you reach the age of 65. Let's see how much you have. You would have only invested a total of $96,000 in a span of 40 years. But with compound interest, you would have got 10 times your money. Your $96,000 would have turned into $943,000. At 30 years old, that's the average of me and Nita. Let's take her age and my age combined. If both of us just invested $100 each, that would be $200 a month, which means that $84,000 would have been invested over 35 years. 35 years is a little bit less than 40 years. our returns here is still 7x, 700% of our initial investment. Our $84,000 investment would have turned into $592,000. Even if you're starting at 40 years old and only have 25 years to compound your investment, you still make 300% on the money you invested. And lastly, at 50 years old, if you could only invest for 15 years before 65, you'll still get double your money. As you can see, the more time you have for your money to compound with the free money, which is the interest on interest, the more you accelerate your earnings. To break it down to even further detail, let's take a look what would happen if you started investing at 14 years old. The author here uses 10% as the average return. Here, Billy invested only $10,000. After 51 years, he has $1 million. Now, Susan started investing at 19 years old. Not only that, Susan invested a little bit more money as well. Instead of $10,000, Susan invested $16,000 in total. After 46 years of compound, at the age of 65, she'll earn $1 million. The last example here is Kim, who started investing at 27 years old, which is about 13 years later than Billy. Kim invested $78,000, which is about 7 times more than Billy. But because Kim started a little bit later at the same interest return, given that she only has 38 years to compound her investments, she only makes $800,000 at the end of 65 years old. That's not too shabby. That's only $300,000 shy of Billy. However, she did invest 7 times the amount. What the author is trying to show is that compound interest accelerates as more time goes by. The more time you have, the better it is. If you have kids, start out a savings plan for them. There's a YouTube channel I love to follow. They are called Our Rich Journey. I'll put a link down to the video below where they show that their 2 daughters at the age of 14 has already amassed a $14,000 investment portfolio. Not only are you not too late to start, it's not too early to start planning for your kids either. Alright guys, this was a really short step. All you have to do is start tracking your spending. You can do it for the next 7 days and write down everything you spend. Or if you use a money management tool like mint.com or Personal Capital, just look back at your last 7 days. Or if you're in quarantine like me and Nita, look back at your last month because there wasn't much expenditures. Find out where you can apply the Latte Factor to start saving money and start compounding your investments. Please subscribe if you have not done so already. We have 5 more steps to go. Smash that like button and share this video with friends and family. Check out some of the videos right there, and I'll see you guys next week.